readers. My name is Dawn Hughes, and I'm the coordinator for Booktrib's Book Club program. I'm here today with author Kathryn Brown Ramsperger to talk about her timely and timeless novel, A Thousand Flying Things. We are truly so thrilled that Kathryn's book is one of the selections available in Booktrib's Book Club program for January. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes of time during this holiday season to talk to us, Kathryn.
It's my pleasure, Dawn. Thank you so much for having me and to find we have so much in common.
I know, I'm so excited about that. It's always so fun to meet new authors. And I know we only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in because your book sounds phenomenal. I can't wait to read it. No spoilers, but what can you share about the novel that we wouldn't find on the jacket cover?
So the main thing I want readers to know is that this book is a love story. It is not a war story. War is always there on the fringes. It complicates a love. But the two people in love, my protagonist Diana and Kasim, and there's a little boy now in the story whose name is Khalil, have enough of their own complications that war doesn't need to complicate things. And so I try to answer things about love, like, do we choose the ones we love, or do they choose us? Who is our family? Where is home? Can small and large conflicts be healed? But I'm asked one or two questions the most, so I'll put those in here too. The first is about the title. Where did it come from?
Yeah.
It's from a Sudanese proverb, much like an American one. Better a bird in the hand than 1,000 flying things. I love the metaphor. I love the quote. And I actually brought an image to mind of all these being bombarded by birds, like Hitchcock.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
And the reason I chose it, first of all, it's Sudanese, and my book opens in South Sudan. But the other part is that it's about Diana's choices. She thinks she has a gazillion choices and she can't make up her mind. And the more she runs, the more choices she has. She's actually a runner in the book. And she has to slow down a bit to find the perfect choice. And we'll see if she does. And the other question I'm asked is about how much of the novel is true. I was a humanitarian journalist. I've worked in war and disaster globally, mostly with the International Red Cross and Red Crescent, which we've heard something about of late. I did have romantic relationships with men who were different from me. So it's from my experience, but I always say the plot is fiction. It's total fiction. The places I've been are not, the things I've experienced are not, and the love is the one true thing in the book. Love is real. I'm a journalist, but I went back, because this is the 90s, I went back and researched things, and there's a timeline of events at the end of the book if anybody wants to follow it.
That's so cool. I always find it fascinating when journalists do the research for book projects because it's a different kind of research. I mean, we all know how to research to some extent, but I think journalists look through it through a different lens.
Well, the interviews help. I had reams of pages from interviews of the people that I knew and met. And you get a 15-second soundbite, and then you have all this other material. And they're all composite characters, but they're really from people I knew and loved and still care about wherever they are. And so I put those in there, and where I could, I had people of that culture read what I wrote.
Yeah, that makes sense. Huh. It seems like a no-brainer in some ways, but because there's so many layered themes and things that I think you would want to discuss. But why do you think this book would make such a great book club selection?
I wrote it for book clubs. I had book clubs in mind when I wrote it because I wanted to start a conversation. This is my point of view. Diana, my protagonist, is told through my author's eyes. And I wanted to talk about the things that are brought up with other people. And I'm happy to talk to book clubs, by the way. although I know a lot of book clubs want to have their own group, and so that's fine too. I tried to answer people's questions about my humanitarian life, the challenges of being a humanitarian or an expatriate in another country. And it's also a great book for classroom use because it makes you think. But I think people that have lived through decades of war in the Middle East will be especially interested to
Yeah.
discuss this. I just came back maybe 2 weeks ago from a book club where a woman had read it on the plane, and she was a little late because she'd just flown in, and
Yeah.
I hadn't met her, and she came in, feel my arm, they're goosebumps, it's happening all over again. So and she's talking about the events in the Middle East and Africa, and that's why I provide the timeline, and tried to match them with the plot points from my imagination. It's my feeling that there's not enough connection right now. There's not enough discussion, and that's what book clubs do so well.
Yeah.
They take a story and make it their own, and then they share the story.
That's so true. And also, this book really is timely and timeless,
Can't
so
imagine it. Of course, there are always wars, but
yeah,
I give myself chills when I think about, because there were times that I felt like maybe this wasn't the right book. I think all authors go through that, but it's sort of a miracle about how this got published. And I was like, well, it's supposed to be out there now. And uh, it just happened like that.
yeah,
The book got published, and then uh, everything started happening. I'm not going to say what, but
of course, right, yeah. Wow. Well, you've definitely sold me on the idea. It needs to be a book club book, so that's great. We're going to veer off a little bit. We're going to be kicking this off in January, and in January, everyone makes their reading challenges. So after they've read your book, I'd love to know what the best book that you read this year was and why.
So it's probably one that most people in book clubs have heard of, but I can't not say this person because I reviewed the book in New York Journal of Books before she started winning all these awards for it. It's Barbara Kingsolver's The Demon Copperhead. And I'm a real fan of hers. I read everything she writes. And I do believe this is her best. It's the pinnacle of her career. It's a masterpiece, both literary and in terms of social justice. It's about our home. When I read Animal Dreams, I thought, wow, she wrote a story like I want to. And I followed her because of that. When I read the Poisonwood Bible, I was hooked. And when I read this, I thought, boy, I started it and I thought, can she pull it off? And my God, she did. It's very difficult to have realistic characters, compelling plot with social justice themes. And I think she's the master of it. So that's why.
Wow.
I also have a podcast that interviews international authors of all types, and people here that write about multicultural themes and social justice. Readers can find it on YouTube, and I think they're every bit as worthy. I think every story is worthy because we're all making up that greater human story,
Yeah.
story of humanity. And I could list some of those here too, but that was my favorite, and for good reason, as everybody knows.
I'm a fan of hers too, and I have not read that book, so I'm adding it immediately to my TBR. Immediately. Thank you.
Demon Copperhead equals today's David Copperfield. That's what everybody needs to know about it.
Wow, that's high praise indeed.
And
Yeah.
she did it with intention. She wanted to write today's David Copperfield. And that's why I was thinking, can she pull it off?
Yeah.
And she did. in my opinion.
Wow.
And others too.
I truly feel like you and I could probably talk about books in your book all day long. But I know I have to wrap this up. So I want to thank you again for your time.
I thank you for yours, Dawn. And thank you, everybody out there.
We are excited to read your book. So for more information about Kathryn's book, please check out the book club page on the booktrib.com website.